It is a great privilege to be the president of the Board of Directors of Lutheran Towers as we celebrate our 40th anniversary. What began as a dream of Redeemer's pastor Robert E. Lee in the late 1960s is today a vibrant and supportive community. Lutheran Towers has provided affordable housing over the years to more than 3,000 residents of a diverse background and faiths. We have been blessed with exceptional staff and leadership, which has enabled us to just complete a major renovation of all of our apartments. It is an exciting time. I thank God for the community of Lutheran Towers, a true haven in the heart of Midtown.
Lutheran Towers is one of the great ministries of the life of this church. When I came in 1988, I was really astonished by the vision shown by Dr. Lee and the lay leaders of the church. And I thought then what enormous courage it took and faith that it took to establish that sort of ministry.
I asked him one day about the church starting a parochial school. With that, he picked up a bulletin on his desk and said something to the effect that I've been wanting to have somebody come in and ask about this. And he handed me a bulletin that was put out by a company, two guys down in Florida that had worked with churches in building senior citizens' homes. So I called the guys and told them that our church had some property and we didn't know what we wanted to do with it, but if they came to Atlanta, we'd like to talk to them. Well, they immediately came to Atlanta. They showed us some of the homes that they had built for senior citizens in Orlando and various places in Florida. And so one thing led to another, and we decided to try to go for a senior citizens home. So I told Pastor Lee about these guys, and we ended up calling them back. And it was a HUD being Housing and Urban Development of the government, that were making loans for this, and so we decided to go talk to HUD.
My dad, Robert Lee, was pastor at Redeemer when Lutheran Tower, the concept of Lutheran Towers was being talked about at the Church Council Redeemer and with HUD. And years later, when I was the executive director, I spoke to Dad about why he built Lutheran Towers, why he felt so important about this ministry. And he shared a story with me about visiting a Redeemer member who was elderly. She had no money, she had no family, and Dad really became worried about who was going to take care of her as she continued to age. And then he started thinking about the other members of Redeemer who faced the same situation. And he told me that was the impetus of the concepts behind the building of the Lutheran Towers. And of course, as we know, the rest is history.
You know, we were dealing with a senior citizens home, and it kind of bothered all of us on the board that senior citizens would have to cross the street. Well, there was not a red light there, and climb the hill up to the church to get there. So we decided to try to locate a bridge across, which we approached the city of Atlanta, finally got it approved. designers designed it where it would come into the third floor. It had to get up that high, so it comes into the third floor. And that's one of the reasons that the library and whatever else is still on the third floor was put there.
When I first came, Charles Rizzo was the director of the program over there, but he very shortly after I arrived retired. So we began to look for a replacement, and Tom Lepinen came and applied for the job. Tom was a member of the church. He had a wonderful spirit about him and demeanor and temperament. He was a kind and gentle man. So we brought him on board, and he did a really great job with Lutheran Towers. All the residents loved him. And he walked into my office one day, quite unexpectedly, and handed me his letter of resignation. Mark Lee was walking down the hall to visit with me. So Mark came to the office, and I said, you know, Mark, the Lord has sent you here today, and He has a job for you. And I explained to him what was needed, and Mark was excited about the possibility. And he began his work as the director of the tower. And Mark did a terrific job in every possible way, engaging the board, setting up budgets that could be worked with and repairs that needed to be done. And Mark was excellent with the people. Of course, he had that Lee name, and everybody remembered that this was Dr. Lee's baby. So Mark was accepted and loved by everybody, and he did a really outstanding job.
We rolled up our sleeves and went to work. In the 4 years I was at Lutheran Towers, our first mission was to focus on the systems of the building and on our cash flow situation. While taking care of the physical needs of the building, it was also important that we start taking a look at resident life. We brought a new 14-passenger van so we could transport our residents to activities that were off campus. We hired a social worker who was able to start meeting with residents and align their needs with community-based services that were in the Atlantis area. And these range from medical to dental to vision, pharmacy, rehab. We had nutrition folks. Meals on Wheels played a large part of our success with that. And that was a very big program for us as well. A lot of residents were in need of just some medical attention and some TLC, and we were able to deliver that through our social worker.
I joined the Lutheran Towers Board in 2000 and served for 7 years. It was truly an amazing experience for me to be able to be a part of continuing Pastor Lee's vision. What has always been very amazing to me in my work with Lutheran Towers is to watch the Holy Spirit at work. Every single time that we identified a need, we found that God had already placed the right person on the board or on a committee with the perfect skills to address that need. What we were able to do in just a few short years, we could not have orchestrated it by ourselves.
I became involved with the Towers probably differently than most. I lived in Midtown Atlanta, 2 streets down from the Towers at 4th and Myrtle, which was 3 blocks down from Redeemer. And I came to get to know a number of people who would come down and walk around our house and comment on my yard or say hello to us when we sat on the porch and had dinner. And I learned later that those were all residents of the Towers. We then joined Redeemer, and I noticed in the bulletin one Sunday an ad basically saying that they needed van drivers for the grocery runs on Fridays at the Towers. And I ran my own business at the time and thought I could certainly put in an occasional Friday to drive the grocery van, which began a 5 or 6 year run of every Friday, driving the grocery van to Kroger with a group of up to 14 or 18 seniors. And that was truly one of the most wonderful times and experiences of my life, to have that opportunity to meet so many great people many of whom remain friends of mine today, as do many of the staff.
And thinking back over the 40 years, which is just absolutely incredible to think that we've been providing affordable housing for that long, I think about my own journey of coming to Lutheran Towers. For me, it started some 12 years ago. Before coming to Lutheran Towers, my background was working with IBM for almost 16 years. But I wanted to do something more spiritually fulfilling, so I actually resigned from my job and I went back to school to get a master's degree in public administration. It was during that time that I was working on my degree that I did an internship here at Lutheran Towers under Mark Lee, who was then the executive director. And then I got the call that Mark Lee had taken a position, or was leaving and was taking a position in South Carolina, and that I should consider coming back and applying for the position. There was lots to be done during that time, and thank goodness we had a wonderful, wonderful board to work with who supported me as I made changes. Mark Lee did an incredible job to really set the stage for me to come in and just take this organization to the next level. So in doing so, we were able to renovate the building, do a lot of upgrades to the building, and also work on getting really the best staff that we could find, the most professional staff that we could find. And it's taken 8 years to get us to this point, and here we are today. I'm standing here in a renovated apartment. This was a huge undertaking on the part of the board to decide that we would refinance our mortgage to then allow us to renovate all 203 apartments. That is, we totally gutted the kitchens and the bathrooms, and this is what you see today. This is the result. So really, really pleased by that.
It offered an awful lot to not just the church, but the downtown area of Atlanta. The area had been run down. It brought activity back to the area. I guess we've seen the ups and downs, the good and bad, but thank goodness, I guess maybe the Lord's been with us.
It was an enormous undertaking, but they went after it, and looking back now, at the 40 years of life of Lutheran Towers, you have to realize that really thousands of people's lives have been touched and blessed and strengthened and healed over those years.
I'm blessed to be part of Towers, working with such an incredible staff, wonderful residents, and being part of such a leader in aging services is amazing. When I joined the board, I just thought it was a building across the street from the church, and I learned it was so much more. And every meeting I go to, I see something new and something different, and it's so fulfilling. Being part of Towers is a blessing.
Though I've been in Atlanta only a couple of years right now, I've gotten to know so many residents of the Towers. Many come over on Wednesday nights to share our meals here at Redeemer. Some of them are affiliated with Redeemer in official ways, but most are not. And it's wonderful to have them as part of our family and to have that bridge that connects us. The Towers is such a critical and pivotal part of our ministry here. In fact, one of our core ministries. It's part of our very identity here at Redeemer. And so, as we move forward in this relationship, we do so joyfully and with the best wishes for the future, and always with our prayers that we keep our hands going across the bridge and our feet as well, and these relationships that we develop in the name of Christ with all the folks who live there, Lutherans, non-Lutherans, regardless of whatever flavor. It's a joy to be a part of that ministry.